Welcome in to Greenville Grit, Greenville residents in touch on 103.7 WTIB. This is the local show that keeps you connected and in touch with the issues that affect what's happening in your community. Greenville Grit is sponsored by Ribeyes, Kid Construction, and Greenville Toyota. Now, here are your hosts for Greenville Grit, Terry Williams and Michael Overton.
Good evening and welcome to Greenville Grit. I'm Terry Williams.
And I'm Michael Overton. Terry, good to see you today. We've got a good show with Carl Reese.
We do.
Head
Welcome,
of Economic
Carl.
Development for the City of Greenville. Carl, thank you for coming in and a lot of really cool and exciting things going on in economic development and talk about that. And we'll really kind of define what is economic development because a lot of people hear that term, but it's really in the eye of the beholder. So let's go into what it means and some of the things going on. But as always, we got to thank our sponsors for the ability to do this show. Terry, take the road on that one.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know, one of my favorites. I love them all dearly, but I love ribeyes.
Ribeyes
Got to bring that up first.
That's right.
Love ribeyes, love their salad bar, and we so appreciate them sponsoring us. And they're still offering, I guess,
25% discount.
Special.
Go
You
in there
go in
and
and mention
Greenville
Grit, and you get a 25% discount.
You get the salad bar, get a big juicy steak.
Yeah.
They've got chicken and pork chops. So it's not just
I
about
heard pork
steaks,
chops were
but
really good.
you
I'm
can find
hungry.
them on Fire Tower Road and also have a store in Williamston.
right.
So you visit either one of
right.
them. And again, mention Greenville Grit, also Greenville Toyota.
Greenville Toyota have been with us since the beginning.
From the very beginning. We really appreciate Craig's loyalty and help on the show.
right.
So if you're looking for a new Toyota or Scion vehicle or a new used car, go see Craig Ghost and the Greenville Toyota team at 321-3000 or greenvilletoyota.com, where you can find them across from Fresh Market on Memorial Drive. Also the Overton Group.
Overton Grit.
Real estate and property management professionals with an office here and in New Bern. We all service all of Eastern North Carolina, commercial real estate, sales and leasing, residential real estate, business and brokerage, and last but not least, Kid Construction Group. If you have not visited KCGBuildGreen.com, that's KCGBuildGreen.com, go check it out. Bill builds in a beautiful home, puts a lot of features in it. He's a green builder. But just puts a lot of features, a lot more than you normally get from a regular home builder. So give him a chance and give him a call. Check out his website. Check out all of our sponsors and make sure you support them so we can be here next week and many weeks beyond. We're going to take a quick commercial break, come back and get on with Carl and talk about economic development. Welcome back to the Greenville Grit. This is Michael Overton along with my co-host, Terry Williams. Here we got Carl Reese on.
Yes.
Carl, thank you for coming on the show today. We're going to talk about economic development. And one of the things Terry and I have kind of avoided, really, we don't want to go too deep into the bond conversation because it's a lot of things that we're trying to put together that we're going to present to City Council, and there's 14 people that have got to
Well, it's kind of new. All the discussions and presentations have been all the new things, and now we're starting to kind of put everything together with tonight's meeting. And so we have been a little reluctant until we know really what direction more that everything is headed. But we've sort of let people know a little bit about having Gary on and having Kevin on from Public Works, and now we have Carl. So
well, we would encourage, too, anyone listening, it's open to the public.
That's right.
And it's every other week. So it's this Wednesday, and then in 2 weeks it'll be again at 5:30 in room 337, I believe, on the third floor.
337 City Hall.
City Hall. So why we wanted to bring you on, Carl, is we've gone through Public Works, we've gone through Recreation and Parks, and we've gone through yours. And we talked a little briefly with Gary last week. He had a lot of things to hit up, but you did a phenomenal presentation.
Really was.
For us. And
it made us feel different.
It did.
It breathed new life into the talks. Not that every area isn't important, but it's sort of really tuned in on
things that excite you. When you see, you're like,
you
wow,
can see
Greenville
happening.
can do this. This really can bring some excitement
That's
to the
right.
town. So let's start out, and we may have done this last time you were on, but economic development really is a very broad term.
It is.
And it covers so many areas. And when I saw your presentation, there were things in there that really surprised me at first. I was like, really, is that economic development? But the more that I listened and understood from what you guys are presenting, I'm like, well, that makes complete sense. I understand the importance of why this was in yours. I mean, some of it really was even recreation and parks.
Sure, absolutely.
But I understood why after the discussion. So talk Economic development. Give us a description of it.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me on again. Thanks to Henry Hinton and the Interbanks team for putting this show on, because they do such a great job with getting information out to the community, and I just think that's so important to have that in your town, so thank y'all. But economic development, anything that we work in, y'all are in the real estate business, I mean, it's very complex, but to try to maybe simplify it a little bit, economic development is really about three primary things for the community. It's about creating tax base. It's about creating jobs or opportunities for jobs, and then quality of life. And in many cases, those first two, the tax base and the jobs, drive the quality of life. So the quality of life are all the things that make communities great. It's why we want to live in that community. Each community being a little bit different. There's coastal communities, mountain communities, Piedmont, coastal plain, and we all have our own strengths and weaknesses. But the great parks, the quality of life, the things to do, those are the things that drive that. So. But really, the core of it is keeping your existing businesses, helping them grow, going out, finding new businesses, marketing your community to those to get them come in. Industries, I would go with the businesses. And then having a workforce, having the people in your community, or really these days we're fairly mobile, so you're looking at a labor shed. We're looking at all the counties around Greenville, ensuring that our people who live in this area are ready for those jobs when they come. So if Michael decides to expand his company, that we have people that are ready to go and go to work for Michael and drive that tax base.
Right.
Well, there's no doubt we have such an asset in Pitt Community College, too, in terms of getting people ready for the jobs and a lot of the programs they present there. And a lot of people don't even realize they're the seventh largest in the state.
They are.
In community colleges with almost 20,000
It's
students.
remarkable what's been done there.
And have really tailored, over the years, they have tailored what their offerings to fit what some of the industrial targets and other targets are here for our community. But again, like I said, everything has sort of layers of complication to it. It's not only those folks who have gone to college or can go to college. We've got a whole other set of people here in town who have other needs, and that college may not be an option. So we work with a number of different partners here in town to try to find those opportunities for people at all levels. Believe it or not, one of the things that's trending nationally, and it kind of makes some sense with all the recidivism that we have with people going into jail and out of jail, back into jail, trying to help people with reentry. That's a big thing. We have agencies here like Strive here in Greenville. It's a great organization.
Third Street Community Center,
who are working in that. And if we can get a certain percentage of those folks who have been in that cycle of going in and out of jail, if we can get them straightened out and get them productive workers, making money, paying taxes, whatever, we all save money because that's one less person that's incarcerated, and you've changed a life. And so it's really at all levels. And of course, we are a college town, so we can't forget East Carolina University and all the tremendous talent that comes to Greenville to attend that university, whether it be undergraduate or graduate. A lot of them, honestly, are going to go back home where they're from. That's okay. But don't we want to make Greenville as appealing as we can to keep as many of those talented students here as are willing to stay here?
And a lot of them do stay. They do. They like the environment of and where we're located in reference to all the other places they like to visit. Greenville's got a good central location. Well, I know we always have a huge amount of talk about Uptown and the development going on there. If you just give us a little quick update. We have heard some news this week about jobs that have been created uptown this year and last year, but then we want to expand to what's really happening everywhere in Greenville.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to do both. Uptown is a great success story. 20 years ago, this is the same here as it was across the country. Most communities were not paying a lot of attention to their downtowns. Interestingly enough, near us, New Bern was. They were one of the early communities that went to work. But here, really in the late 90s and early 2000s is when I think our community began to realize that maybe we were missing having a great downtown. People of my parents' generation or Michael's parents' generation, that's where business was conducted back in the day, as we say, and we kind of lost that over the years, and I think a lot of us missed it. So we went to work on our downtown. So many people have worked so hard on it, to a point now where I think most people in the community really value it and want to see good things happen. And so we've had a lot going on. It started out with some initial public investment, maybe fixing up some of the infrastructure, the streets, the sidewalks, getting some lighting down there, maybe doing some work through our police department on how we actually police downtown. There have been some issues with crime, not anymore. And then soon thereafter, we began to see the private investment. It started
That's right.
small, started a little restaurant here, a little shop there, nothing too big. Built bit by bit. This is not exactly right, but I'd say about 10 years ago, there were 6 restaurants downtown. Restaurants are cyclical, we know, but at any given time right now, there's 21, 22, 23 restaurants open in downtown Greenville, with more in the planning stages, so
Right.
that's great. And then the other piece was residential. Not too many people live in downtown. There's a couple apartments above some buildings, but not a whole lot. Well, that changed in a big way this year
Exactly.
when 2 local families, 2 local developers got together, Jim Ward, Tom Taft, and their companies, and collaborated on a huge project downtown. 500 new beds of housing down there, 12,000 square foot of retail, really being done from an architectural standpoint in the same way as you see buildings in downtown Raleigh or downtown
Right.
Charlotte or other bigger cities. Really changing
shaping up
the
now,
skyline,
too.
I guess, of
Yeah, it's
downtown.
going to change this out. And just to give people hear so much about us talking about downtown or uptown, and we were not going to spend too much time there, but a lot of the reason and the importance for us doing that is twofold. 25 or 26% of our tax rolls in Greenville are non-taxable.
Yeah, they are.
So we're losing out a quarter of our properties. We have no property tax coming in
right.
on, which is a lot more than most other communities.
It is.
But the other reason too is the property that is taxable in that uptown area is going for over $900,000
It's
an
much
acre
more valuable
versus
than-
an average of around $50,000 an
That's
acre
right.
in the rest of the county. So the density of it
Yep.
is what creates that huge tax base. And again, for those listening, that's one of the reasons that we do push it. But let's talk about some of the things going on in the rest of Greenville and
Well,
some of the new thoroughfares that you're looking to do on the bond committee. And you've got about a 21 to $29 million just for yourself.
Yep.
We're only talking about 28 for the whole thing. So
No, I mean, that's
$6 million bond, we're good to go.
the
Let's
the
talk
bond
about some of
committee's
the things.
done a great job of sort of asking for information, but when you ask for information, you're
You're
going to
gonna
get a lot.
get it.
But you know what?
and you got a
That's
lot
the
to
thing
go
is,
through,
it
so.
wasn't just information; it was choices. It was things that
Good things.
really got us excited. Saying, okay, we know that we're going to have some maintenance issues that are going to have to be dealt with, but let's look at those things that one of the in the newspaper this week, letter to the editor was transformational.
Right.
Let's look for the transformational projects that really not just excite the citizens here, but bring people, give them a reason to come here
That's
and say,
right.
wow, this really is a cool community to live in. So
Well, I guess maybe to work our way down to some of the things that we talked about in economic development with the bond, I would say that, I think most of us would agree that the 2 major drivers here in Greenville are, the medical core that we have and the university. There's others as well, certainly, but those are the 2 major drivers. And so a lot of what we look at is how do we play off those things to create more tax base. Michael was alluding to it, and you want to be so careful when you talk about it. We all know Greenville would not be Greenville without East Carolina University and Vidant Health Systems. Wouldn't trade them for anything in the world, and I mean that.
That's right.
On the other hand, just the nature of what it is, those are both nonprofit entities. And so all of the great buildings that you see that are associated with them are off of Greenville's tax rolls, yet we still have to provide a fair amount of service, particularly university. University towns are a little different, so we got a lot of students who are in and out and require a certain type of service for them as well. But that aside, what we want to do is take those 2 great assets that help us in terms of employment and making us who we are, and actually use them to drive additional tax base through the fact that they're here in town. And so a lot of what we introduced was related to that. A couple examples. We talk about the 10th Street Connector. That's a project that's already on the books for the North Carolina Department of Transportation. It was developed through collaboration of the City of Greenville, Vidant Health, they were then University Health Systems, but now Vidant Health, and East Carolina University, all of whom put money in
Right.
to get that project moved up on the DOT wish list, because that's what it was at the time. It wasn't an actual project, it was a wish,
Right.
into design, into right-of-way acquisition, into funding by the state of North Carolina, and now it'll start construction end of this year, very beginning
you've
of
got
next year.
land being cleared now. You can
Absolutely.
see that happening. For those listening, that 10th Street Connector literally is Highway 33 on the east side of town, going through by the university, going past Evans Street, going up an overpass, I believe,
An overpass over Dickinson.
coming in and then tying into Stantonsburg Road.
Out to
So-
264, out to I-95,
Yep.
out to I-40.
And ECU's primary reason obviously was a good one. They've got 2 campuses, and they wanted to be able to
Connect them.
more easily
Great
connect those
connection between
campuses.
the two,
Plus,
so-
plus just the travel.
Yeah.
Coming into
That's right.
Stantonsburg Road, that side of town, it's very difficult and confusing for people that are not from here to So I think that's a great
It creates
idea.
a clear connection and an easy way for people that are coming into Greenville from the west, which we know that is where most people come from, those interstates to the west, right into the heart of the city. And then for those of us that live here, obviously, Vidant Health alone employs 6,900 people on their campus out on Stantonsburg Road. Many of those people, most of them in fact, live back to the east,
Right.
so it allows people to get back and forth to work safely. Not to mention the fact, we don't need to belabor the point, but railroads have always been an issue here in town, and this is one other way to help us literally get over that railroad,
Exactly.
so we can get our ambulances and other rescue vehicles
I think
back
it's
and
going to
forth
completely
safely.
rejuvenate that
It
commercial
will.
zone.
I think the commercial
Really, it's gonna be
will
exciting
see
to
a
see.
big difference.
Yep.
as
So,
well.
so that's one. There's some local funding. DOT doesn't pay it all, and especially they don't pay it all. DOT builds roads to DOT standards. If you want something that's sort of streetscape like we've become used to in our urban core with nice lighting and
Right.
trees and all that sort of stuff, that's not DOT. That's local always.
I guess
here
they
or
give
anywhere
you a
else.
little bit of a budget for that, but
But
anything nicer outside of
Exactly.
the basics,
Yep.
we want to
So-
make it look pretty. We're going to have to spend
So
the money
that's
on
part
that.
of what we talked about in the bonds was
Right.
putting in that local money to cover that so that we can have a really beautiful street running between the two.
How about town commons? Very touchy subject for a lot of people, and that was actually brought up in the meeting. And
It was.
Terry, you take the lead on that one because you had something to say. Bill Clark brought it up, and he had a
Yeah,
very valid
well-
point. We've got to get past not wanting to talk about it, trying not to
gotta
offend
show a little
people. We're not
courage
trying
and
to get
talk
too
about it.
involved in
No,
but
I know.
let's talk about how that can tie into economic development.
Absolutely. Well, for those that may not be familiar, Greenville is a river city. We don't play up our river a lot, but we do
Right.
have a river here in town, and the river runs right through our downtown. Back in the 1960s, through a previous redevelopment era with federal funds, the city came through and cleared out a neighborhood that was there. You hate to sort of categorize people, but I think most of us would call it a slum. It was not quality housing down by the river. And those folks were relocated, and maybe it wasn't done the way we do it today. In fact, I'd say for sure
Well,
it
it was
wasn't.
a long
Laws
time
have
ago.
changed. We've learned more and so on.
Right.
So there's some hard feelings about that, and fair enough. Anyway, ever since then, it's just been a big, clear, open area, a few trees. There are a few really nice things that go on there. I think for 20, 25 years, we've had our Sunday in the Park that
Right.
generations of kids have gone down there and run around, and parents have heard music, and that's all great and good, and a few other events down there. But most of the time, if you drive down First Street by there, there's just nothing going on. Maybe a lone jogger kind of jogging
Yeah.
through there or whatever, not a whole lot going on. Well, that whole end of downtown was actually redeveloped back in the 60s in a different style than what we do today. Very, very low density, small buildings, a couple small buildings on a great big block. What makes downtown so valuable, and Michael alluded to this, is
Density.
that we get great density, taller
Right.
buildings, a whole lot of building in a small space. Previous to this, we managed to handle on-street parking and off-street parking. Now we're going to the era of parking garages, private, public through ECU with parking garage
Right.
and city parking garage. That's what happens, but that allows you to free up space to continue that density up and a whole lot on a small area. That drives tax base. And so whether it be the average of that downtown area at $933,000 an acre, or even more stunning, if you look at the project we talked about earlier with Taft and Ward are driving that project, that's about $7.2 million per
Right.
acre. And actually that 7.2 figure would be much more like what you're seeing in downtown Asheville, Raleigh,
Right.
Durham, Charlotte, so on. So that's kind of what we're pointing toward, but we're not quite there yet. Well, anyway, that northern end of downtown, nothing going on in Town Common, very lightly developed in that old style development. What we have heard from developers and what we believe is that in this case, the public investment that you would then see private investment follow is for the city to come in and do some things with Town Common that would get people there. And I think reasonable arguments can be made about what sort of that package of
Right.
things are. But developers don't get real excited when they come and stand in one of those blocks and think about spending several $1 million to assemble it, and they look around
And there's no one
nothing
there.
around them at
Yeah.
all other than a courthouse.
That's right.
That's just the truth of the matter. On the other hand, if the city announces plans that we're going to go in and we have a plan for this town common, we're going to start putting public investment in here, we expect hundreds of people every day to be in and out of here using that, that's when the wheels start turning for
Right.
developers and they start thinking, there's something going on down here. I want to be ahead of everybody else. Let me jump in and do something here. And so I found through the last few years, the Redevelopment Commission, Terry was on the Redevelopment Commission when they did the plan, when people engage in discussion about Town Common, I found actually very positive reactions. People get excited. Are there differences about what people think we should do? Yes, but
Sure.
overall people get very excited. It seems that it's in the spaces when we're not talking to each other that maybe certain interest groups
Right.
are talking behind the scenes, we're never going to do this or we're absolutely going to do this or whatever. That's when I feel that the little negativity starts to crop up about it. And so I thought there was a lot of good conversation at the last bond committee meeting of a group of people who I think wouldn't be on that bond committee unless they had established themselves as pretty dedicated Greenville citizens. I thought there was really good conversation, not necessarily 100% agreement, but
Right.
really good conversation
you'll
about
never
we
have
need
that.
to
That's
talk
right.
about this.
That's what we said. We have to have courage to talk about it. And it is a very large parcel of land.
And the ability to give in to try to
Yeah,
work
that's
something out.
right. And there could be multiple uses for that and still not lose in a portion of it a park environment that people could enjoy that portion of it as well as, a drawing card to get people down there besides just the park. So that is exciting. And we're going to run short on time. I do not want us to forget about
Then
talking
get our second
other,
commercial break and come back
other
and do that,
retail
so.
that's maybe coming and people have been begging for years
Sure.
that we might see come to fruition, but I guess we better take
Well,
our
yeah, we'll go to take our
break.
second commercial break, come back, and just wrap up with Carl Reese of the City of Greenville Economic Development.
Welcome back. We've been discussing economic development today with Carl Reese. And Carl, you always have such a wealth of information, and it's very exciting things going on. For many, many years, we've talked about, of course, everything's all about jobs, and we know that. And how are we going to get, everybody can't work at Vidant, everybody can't work at ECU, but those are so important. But we also have to have other drawing cards for jobs, and one of those would be in the retail sector. What can you
Absolutely.
tell us a little bit about what's going on newsworthy that you
Sure.
might could share, or ideas that you have?
Well, both really.
Okay.
It's after a quiet period here for a few years. It's a strong year for retail
Right.
in Greenville. I think most people are familiar with the Walmart announcements, and I realize that not everybody's in love with Walmart. Pros and cons to any kind of business, but they will be putting affordable groceries sort of in reach of anybody in our community. And we talked earlier about certain segments in our community that can be tough to employ.
Right.
Like them or hate them, it's fine. It's up to you. Walmart does employ many of those people in those sectors, and so
that's right.
there are some advantages there. But moving on
Well, I
beyond
mean, the north side of the river, that super center, man,
They're
what a phenomenal
desperate for
project.
Absolutely.
that. Well, I think it's a good indication when Walmart wants to expand in the growth rate that they want to do in Greenville. That's a good sign that we're really on the up and up
and
for
the
growth.
key, of course, is balance.
Yeah.
So we talked about some segments of our population, our economy that work for Walmart, but we also have other folks that come from larger metropolitan areas to work at the university or in our industrial parks or at Vidant, and they're looking for other things as well. And so pretty good there. We've got, all told, I think we're up over 500,000 and maybe approaching 750,000 square feet of retail that is either under construction or planned for this year. So
That's awesome.
that's a pretty big amount. Our office has worked extremely hard to sort of work our way into the retail community nationally through the International Council of Shopping Centers, and have had good experience with developers who are already here, filling places like Circuit City. There was some
Right.
that sat vacant for quite a few years. We've got 3 new retailers in there, and we're also working on understanding what retailers are looking for in sites. And so one of the things that we talked to the bond committee about back in the area off of Memorial Drive, really between Memorial Drive and Greenville Boulevard, there is quite a bit of acreage. This is behind Lowe's, if that
Right.
makes
Behind
sense.
Fresh
to
Market
any of
Lowe's,
those.
yeah.
Exactly.
Behind Fresh Market.
There is a lot of acreage that's sitting back there that actually has the appropriate zoning to be developed into retail. You have two major roads there in Greenville Boulevard and in Memorial Drive that can handle the type of traffic that is generated by major retail centers. What we don't have is the infrastructure between those roads that's unconnected. And so what you've seen, if you were to look at a map, which we did this with the bond committee, we kind of showed them an aerial map, it is clear to see there's retail development all around the fringes of that site, and then it just stops. There's
Right.
nothing in there. And so one of the things that we've talked with the bond committee about is extending a road right through the heart of that area, a big road. Also running the utilities, that Greenville Utilities would run along with it. So there's water, sewer, electric, even fiber, things like that. And maybe opening that up where we could get retail development.
Right.
And we talked about the ability to do that and maybe have as much as $50 million of new tax base developed back
Which would
in
be
that
awesome.
area. And this is not something that we're doing blindly. I mean, we've had conversations both with local retailers and national retailers, and we hear that there's interest in doing that. Greenville is the retail hub, and frankly, that area of Greenville is the retail hub within
perfect.
Greenville.
It
I
is
completely
perfect.
agree with that. That's great.
That's
I know
great
our show
information.
is coming
I
to an
know.
end too, and we want to cover 10 more things and we can't get it in, Carl. Maybe you'll come back on
Happy to.
in the
We'd
future.
love for you to.
I want that FOS, friend to show status. I think
There
this is
you
my
go.
second time, so
Yeah, we
anytime.
appreciate that.
sounds
We
good.
always, again, have to finish thanking our sponsors
Yes.
one more time. Greenville Toyota, Kidd Construction Group at kcgbuildgreen.com, the Overton Group, Ribeye Steakhouse. Don't forget, mention Greenville Grit. You get a 25% discount. You can join us in at 6:30 on Friday
Fridays.
night, 9:30 Saturday morning on
Yes,
Cable
please
7.
join us.
And other than that, we'll see you next week.